Hi crafty friends, it's Shana from ShanoukiArt. Welcome to episode 6 of Art Journal August. Today we're going to work with contrasts. In our art journal, if you have a page that has a bold black and white background, use that if you can. If you don't, that's also okay. We're going to start by adding some collage pieces to the background. We are going to leave some of the bold black and white pattern showing in between. I'm using sheet music and I've cut it into thin strips. I'm sticking this down with my Mod Podge and then I'm applying a layer of Mod Podge over the collage paper too. If you have a plain background to start off with, you could use bold patterned paper for your collage strips. I'm now going to add my white gesso to blend in the strips and the background to soften it all and make it more uniform. And yes, this is covering up some of the original dark contrast print that we started with. But as you can see, the gesso is not solid and that pattern still shines through. Dry that all well and trim off the excess collage bits. Now you're going to need to pick a really bright color. I'm using acrylic paint and I have chosen a bright orange. This episode is not called contrasts for nothing. Then just start applying your paint to your layout. And then if you have any kind of object that you can press into the paint and then make marks on your paper, use that. I have a lid from something, it's a round shape. I'm just applying some paint to that and then applying it to my page. Just have fun seeing what impressions you can make with the shapes you have. I don't really have a plan here. I'm just letting my paintbrush sort of do the work. I decided to add some water to the circle and let the color run in to make it more of a solid shape. And then I didn't like it, so I blotted out the paint with a tissue. Just remember, you don't have to like everything all the time. You can make changes as you go if you're not happy with something. So I think I'm liking this scrap of paper I had on the side where I was pressing my shape in just to get some of the paint off. It's a lot bolder. I'm just drying that and I think I'm going to attach it to my page. And that's another thing that shows you can't always have an exact plan. You can have an idea before you start, but things will develop and change as you go. And this is another exciting part of mixed media and art journaling. Well, that I enjoy. I have this round black and white die cut that I think I want to use, but I think it's a little too big, so I'm just going to punch a smaller circle out of the same paper. If I use it in its original size, it's just sort of overbearing and the wrong kind of focal point. So without thinking or planning too much, I'm going to stick this down. And yes, I stuck it over one of the circles I made with the orange paint, and that's okay. These things are forever evolving. I didn't want that circle anymore, so I covered it up. I'm adding a bit more paint on the far right on my orange stripe just to get that sort of the same tone as my bold circle on the left. I'm also adding some paint splatter and then I'm going to try and color in 2 more of the half circles with the watery paint. I really love that effect and I'm hoping it's going to work this time. I have some black acrylic paint and I'm going to do some more bold mark making. Using a small flat paintbrush, I'm just going to make little dabs or dashes. I'm starting off on the right over the bold orange. This creates a great contrast. I'm balancing that out by adding some on the left as well. Going to now add some texture. Using again orange, I have a piece of orange vellum. It's a bit crumpled up, but it'll work just fine. So I'm going to just crumple it up to give it more texture. And I also have a piece of cheesecloth that I'm going to use. And I'm going to sort of stack these on top of each other to create a focal point. I also have a piece of white chiffon fabric, so I'm just bringing a few elements together, playing around with those a bit and see what looks best. I'm going to bring in some black thread. This is just the regular thread you use for sewing, and I'm going to crumple that up and sort of place it underneath to do a bit of a break between the orange background and the orange vellum. And then I want to add a heart as my focal point. I have a black heart die cut. I also have this from a scrapbook paper. I like this one. It's a little more hand-drawn and rustic. So I'm just going to tear one out and see how I'm going to place this onto my layout. I'm just rearranging the elements a bit just to get them a bit more uniform. This is 100% personal preference, how you make your embellishment stacks. And to be honest, I did struggle a little bit with this one. I changed it quite a few times and I always wasn't quite happy with it. But I kept on and kept trying until I had something I could stick down. I did stitch 3 of the layers together using a sewing machine just to add some interest, and then back to working on this cluster. Sometimes less is more. I used less orange vellum and less black thread, and it started to look a little better. I've taken my black watercolor pencil, I'm dipping the point in water and going around some of this orange circles and making some more marks on the right hand side. Just have fun with that part. At this point, I'm feeling that everything is just too loud. It's all screaming off the page. So I'm going to tone some elements down using my gesso. And applying it with my finger, I'm just going to go over some of the orange part of the circles and just tone down certain areas. Otherwise, it just looks like orange and black chaos. If you have put some gesso in the wrong place, have put too much, you can just remove some with a baby wipe while the gesso is still wet. I'm applying some Mod Podge just on the underneath of the cheesecloth so I can stick that top piece of cheesecloth down, and a little bit at the bottom, and then I'm going to apply quite a bit to the back of my little paper cluster, and then that'll sort of stick everything down, including the thread and the cheesecloth. Drying all that well, and then I'm going to add a little bit more gesso, this time with my paintbrush, just trying to lighten everything and make certain areas less bold. I'm using the gesso quite thick in some areas to get it quite white, as I feel that creates a bigger contrast and also makes everything less busy. It's a little more tricky creating layouts when the original background paper you're working on is pretty crazy, like the one we used. But it's a great challenge to try and create balance and contrast when you have really busy elements. We can't always have easy pages. And I've just spoken about how crazy and chaotic everything is, but I'm going to add to that chaos. I'm going to add a sentiment, because that is how I roll. Just trying it in different areas of the page, just see where it is best suited. And then I'm going to apply some adhesive and stick it down. And then I really wanted to use another hollow heart, just, add some more chaos. As I was fussy cutting this one, I did notice the other one on my desk, which was a bit more scribbly, and there was a section missing on the left, which was perfect because I could align it up with the edge of the page, so it wasn't really a full heart. I liked it there, so I stuck it down. Then the more I looked at this, I wasn't quite happy with this layout. Something wasn't sitting quite right. I just felt that it was all still too loud. Contrast is one thing, but it being so busy wasn't appealing to the eye. So I was going to go over and add a bit more gesso to lighten the whole thing up again. This will help the focal points and the brighter elements stand out more. Everything is sort of just fighting for position at the moment. I'm also going to try lighten everything up by adding a little bit of white splatter. That is really my go-to to make everything cohesive. Can't really go wrong with splatter. This time I only added it on the little orange half circles. After drying that, I did leave this for a while. It was not quite working for me 100%, and I thought if I go away and come back with fresh eyes, I might make another change, or I may like it. So when I came back, I decided that it's the black zigzags in the background that are just too much. So I toned all that down with gesso, and that made a huge difference. So you can still see the zigzags in the background. They're faint, they're shining through, so it's still creating the contrast, but they're not fighting and competing with all the other busy elements on the page. This has made me much happier. And then a bit more color over the white areas that I've just created with some orange splatter. I'm contradicting myself a bit. Earlier in the video, I said less is more. Now I'm saying more is more because now I'm also adding black splatter. I should have called this episode Chaos, not Contrasts. And that smudged a bit, so I'm just going to use a baby wipe to wipe up some of those big splatters. And just cleaning that mess up a little bit. I hit a point of no return with this piece and I sort of just kept adding to it. That's okay. I'm showing you the entire process. So some more black splatter and then I think, oh, we need some more orange. So I'm going to use some of the watered down orange paint and color in that other circle on the right because then I was feeling everything was getting too lost. This just goes to show that not every page goes to plan and everybody struggles. But we had a pretty good art journal page at the end of all of this. Thank you for sticking around if you did. And the black watercolor pencil to enhance that a little bit more. I didn't like that black dot in the middle, which was from a splatter, so I'm going to sort of remove that. Otherwise it looks like a wheel. I'm going to add white splatter on this circle too to match the other two half circles that I had, and then just use the white paint to go over that black dot. So you won't even be able to see it. I'm just covering up all the areas that I don't want any splatter. I really just want it on the orange. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to put the paintbrush down. If you stuck with me this far, thank you. This one was a mammoth one, but we finished in the end. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I really hope you enjoyed it and were inspired. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Thanks again for watching. Happy creating. I'll see you again soon. Bye.